How to build a computer. This build is your basic setup, but the same procedure is applied to high and low-end builds and everything in between. The basic computer build, don't be fooled by the word basic. Basic does not mean that it's a poor performing computer. This build is for demonstration purposes only, to show you how easy it is to actually build a computer, regardless of the type of performance and speed you require for your needs. So whether it's a high-end computer for editing, or business class system, family home entertainment system, or you want it for playing the latest games, or maybe you just need a low-end computer for basic computing, this video will show you how to build it. Every step will be shown in detail, installing the parts in the case, connecting the cables and screws, basically building the computer you want, and all custom built computers are fully upgradable. That means you can upgrade the computer as it gets older, which will maintain its speed and performance and keep it up to date with changes in technology, so you can have the computer for as long as you need it, even a lifetime if you want. You see, it's the quality and performance of the parts that make all the difference to what type of computer you end up with. So the planning of the build is a very important first step, and this is where you find out exactly what parts are required to build a computer that will do exactly what you want it to do, and you find out what's the best possible build within whatever your budget is. If you need help with this planning stage, then I would be more than happy to help you out. So contact me here on Computer Help Made Easy, or connect with me for a free session on planning your computer build, where you can ask me anything about building, upgrading and repairing computers. So let me show you how to build a computer. So parts required for building a computer. Systems board, which is the hub where everything is connected, which I will explain a little later. Random access memory, RAM for short. Again, this is generic parts. There's nothing special about these parts, just to show you how to actually build a computer. CPU, or also called the processor. The brains of the computer, and the fan for the CPU. Now, those first three parts that I showed you there, the systems board, the RAM and the processor, they need to be compatible with each other. If any one of those three parts is not compatible with the other, the computer will not work. Okay, so you have to get those three parts compatible with each other. Now you can buy motherboard bundles where you get the processor, the RAM and the systems board all in one package. Every other part that goes into building a computer are plug and play parts, which means all you have to do is install them. And these parts are the power supply, hard drive. I recommend a solid state drive, I'll explain in a minute. An operating system, your Windows operating system, or you can go for Linux. Ubuntu is one type of Linux operating system, and I put the website up on the screen for you there. Okay. Now with the Ubuntu Linux operating system, you can install it like the Windows with a DVD, or you can use a thumb drive or flash drive like this one here. Okay, so what you do is you make this one, you make it bootable and install the operating system. You can see all the information for this on the Ubuntu website. Okay, so, and this operating system is free, and just to note, it is actually quicker than Windows and a lot more stable. DVD player, like this one here, just one of them DVD players, and a graphics card if required, if you're going doing a lot of editing or playing games. And the last part required is the case, where all the parts are installed. So this is your mid tower, and here is a small form factor case. So a small form factor systems board would go into that type of case. You could get bigger cases than this, but this is your mid tower, which is good enough for most builds. And of course, for the compact build, you have the mini case there. When building a computer, you will also need a screwdriver, screws, which will come with your case and possibly your motherboard, depending. You may even get the screws with both. You'll also get your screws with your power supply, your hard drives, and the risers for the case will also either come with the case or with the systems board. Data cables will also come with your systems board, and basically all the cables and screws and comes with the different parts, so you don't need to be worrying about whether you're going to be getting them or not. And also a static wrist band for preventing you from damaging the parts that go into the computer. Okay, so I will be explaining this, how to set it up in a moment anyway, the correct way to ground yourself. Now I just want to make an important point here. Make sure you install a solid state drive. So something similar to this one here. This is a Samsung solid state drive. The hard drive is the biggest bottleneck of a computer because it's the slowest component in a computer. Why install a solid state drive? Because it's the fastest type of drive that you can install in a computer. On average, about twice as fast as a disk drive. Now, why is it important? Because that's where all the software is installed, including your operating system. So the faster the hard drive operates, the quicker everything gets done. That means a better computer experience for you. And plus the fact that the hard drive is the most common area to fail in a computer. And solid state drives are the most reliable of all drives. So keep that in mind when planning a computer build. A 120 gigabyte solid state drive can be purchased for less than $90. Okay? So now that I've shown you all the components, the first job when building a computer is to test the main components, which are the systems board, the processor, the RAM, the graphics card if you are installing one, and the power supply. Now if you're not installing a graphics card, then you will be using the graphics in your processor, which is, you can get the graphics on the processors, so you don't require a graphics card. So I'm just going to show you how to test those parts now. And the reason why we test the parts before we put them in the case is so that if anything is causing a problem, we will know at that stage. So it powers up, and just to test the fans are working, and fan on the power supply, and just generally that the motherboard is taking power and the RAM is compatible with it and the processor is all working together. Those three parts are the main parts that need to be working together. So if it doesn't boot, you know there's either a problem with motherboard, RAM or processor, and of course the power supply. So static discharge can cause components to fail. Now a static wrist strap is the best way to get yourself as close to zero as possible. If you are concerned about damaging parts due to static buildup in your body, then wearing an anti-static wristband is the best way of dealing with it. So you attach your wrist strap to your wrist and connect this side of it to your power supply. Now plug it in and make sure that the switch on the plug on the power supply is turned on the off position, and plug that into the wall socket, and that'll give you the earth. And then this box is earthed, and what you do is you take a screw and just place it in one of the holes that is in for the screws, and just place it in like so. And it doesn't have to be tight, and then you just get the end of your wrist strap and connect that to it, and that will connect you to ground then. Okay, so when you're handling parts now, you are grounded, so you won't have a discharge onto the component that you are working with. Okay, so now we have everything plugged in that's required. Graphics card connected to monitor, power supply plugged in. We haven't turned on yet. We have our 24-pin connection from power supply and our 4-pin CPU connection for the CPU, and our fan is also connected in. Now basically what we're looking for is to see that all 3 fans are rotating so that they're getting cooled correctly. See, there's a post on the monitor here, and we're also checking the RAM by doing this also. The computer won't turn on, the system won't turn on if there's bad RAM in the system. So we'll turn on the switch now and see does it power up the board and these components. Now, in order to turn the system on, we have to turn on the power button, and the best way to do that is to get a screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, and touch the power switch on the front panel connections here. Just tip it once. I know it's the little red connection here, the 2 pins in the red connection, so I'm just going to touch the 2 of those, and then the system should power up and we should see a post here on the screen. There we go. All 3 fans are powering on, and we've got a post on the screen here. So there we go. It has posted. Fans are all spinning. So we know we have a working motherboard, graphics card, CPU and fan, power supply. Our RAM is fine. There's no beeps coming from the computer, and that's basically it. So that's how we're powered up. Now to turn it off again, just tip it again and it should shut down. And sometimes it will turn itself on again. So now you can disconnect the 24-pin and the 4-pin CPU connections from the power supply, and you can remove the graphics card, and you can leave your RAM and your CPU and fan on the board, and then we will install the board in the case here. Now the first component we're going to install is this CPU, and before you do, put on your static wristband if you're concerned about static. And here's the CPU. So you'll notice that there is 2 notches. There's 2 notches, one here and one over here, and they correspond to unlock this lever. First, just pull it out and pull it back up, and then pull back your CPU holder. Now you'll notice that there is two notches in the CPU array that correspond to those two notches in the CPU. So you take your CPU with the two notches matching up those two notches in the array, and then just drop your CPU down like so. A placeholder back down, just drop it down, and then take your lever. Now it'll take a bit of force, so push it with your thumb or whatever's comfortable and go in under that little, there's a little holder for that lever here, and just drop it in like so. Okay, now also before you install the fan, make sure that there is thermal paste on this pad on the fan. And if there, it will be on it, because they always put on the thermal paste on these fans. But if it's not on it, or if you're upgrading, you may be changing out the processor and you may have to reapply the thermal paste. You will need thermal paste. So you can get this at the store, or it may come with your fan. Now what you do is, you just drop about half the size of a small pea, garden pea, okay, and that's all it takes. Don't put any more on it, because it can get very messy when you're replacing the fan or the CPU next time. And then you just place your fan down on top of that. Now to install the fan, now there's 4 pins, and they correspond to the 4 holes in the motherboard. So this is an Intel type board, so it's an Intel chip that goes into it, and you place your fan down on top of that, making note of this guy. So the CPU fan connection, so you might as well plug that in now as we go. And then there's little arrows, you can see it there, right? So you have to twist them out if they're not twisted that way already. So twist the arrows out on all 4 pins. You'll see this in the manual that came with your CPU anyway. And then you just press down on opposite sides like so. So we'll start with this one here. And you'll hear them clicking in. The opposite side, you'll hear that clicking in. We go to this one, push down, you hear it clicking in, and that one clicking in. So that's the CPU and fan plugged in, and the CPU fan is connected to the CPU fan connection on the motherboard. Once you have the fan installed, just check the back to make sure that the pins are coming out through it. So these are the pins of the fan, and there's a white guy with a little black pin in the middle of it. So make sure that they are sticking out through the back of the systems board in all 4 positions. 2, 3, 4. And then you'll know that the fan is connected correctly to the motherboard. Now, next job is the RAM, random access memory. So that's the random access memory. So you can see that there's a little slot in the middle of it here, and that corresponds to a notch in the memory slot. Okay, so you place it down to match that slot, the slot matching the notch in the actual. Then you just drop it into the slot like so, and then apply pressure to both sides, one at a time or the 2 together. Just push down on top of it. It'll go in. It'll take a little bit of force, but you'll get the idea. Now make sure that you consult your manual to see which color code is for best performance for your memory. Again, we do the same again with the second stick of RAM. Drop it down, push it in, and that's the memory installed. Now, this is the 24-pin connector for your power for the system's board, and this is the 24-pin connection that is made to that connector, and it's keyed. So all these little guys here along, you see there's different shapes there, so some of them are beveled and some of them are square. So you take you'll see a little edge on the side of the 24-pin connector, and that corresponds to this little clip that's on the side of the connector. And then you just drop it down like so. Now this will have to be done for the test and when you're after installing the systems board in the case. Okay, so that's how you connect it. And to remove it then it's the same thing, just pull it out. Can be difficult to pull out, they're tight, so be careful, they are tight. And let's see, we'll show you the 4-pin connector as well while we're at this. So this is the power that goes to your CPU, okay, and this is the 4-pin connector that connects to it. Just drop that down into that there, same way as the last one. Just push it down into it, and that's it, connected. And then to remove it, you just push on this little guy here, and it pops up out of it. Now they are tight, so again be careful. Now, next job we'll show you is the graphics card, and that goes into the PCI Express slot, the 16 slot. It's the graphics card we're going to install, just the run-of-the-mill graphics card. Again, this can be all teased out, what type of a graphics card is the best to get in the planning stage of your build. Now you will notice that there's a little notch cut out of the graphics card which corresponds to this guy here, and just drop it down into that slot there, like so. And it clicks into place again, of course. We'll just drop it in one more time just to show you. So you just drop it in and push it down. That's for installed, and then you'd be putting a screw in here at this area to hold it in place in the case. And that's the main components connected to your motherboard. Now, next job is to install the motherboard into the case, and you'll also get a back plate for your input, output, your input connections in the motherboard. So what you do is you line it up of it like so, and then you see what way it goes into the case, and that's the easiest way to put it in. So then all you do is you place it in the area in the case, and it just pops in. Okay, like so. Now, next job is you have to line up the risers with the holes in the motherboard. There's 7 holes on this case. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you have to place risers in the back plate of the case to correspond with those 7. And that's what the riser looks like. And you just place them in the areas in the case, like so. And you can double check before you place the case, they put the screws in the case. Just make sure that the holes are all lining up with the holes in the motherboard. Okay, like so, and then just place the first screw in to hold it in place, and you can safely hold the motherboard by the fan. Next job then is the power supply. So this is a top mount power supply. Some of them come bottom mount. So basically when you put this in, the fan draws air out of the case and out the back. So you install it this way. So there's 4 mounts at the back of the case. You will see them 1, 2, 3, 4. And just put in the first screw, like so. Once you have the first screw in, you can let go. Pop in, then let the rest of the screws in. Now we connect the 24-pin connector to the motherboard. You can see it there. It only goes in one way, so you get the idea. There's that guy plugged in. And the next one we have to do is 4-pin. And there is the actual connection. That's her plugged in. Next job now is to plug in the graphics card into the PCI Express slot. So if there isn't one of these punched out, then you'd have to punch one out, or if it's a screw hold mount, you'd remove the screw and take out the bracket. Line up your notch, get the notch in your graphics card, like so, and then just pop it into place. And this one requires a screw, so we'll stick the screw in it now. And then that's your graphics card installed. Now, next job is to install the DVD player if you are going to install one. And basically, you have 2 connections to make to the DVD player: your data connection and your power connection. So this is a SATA connect. These are SATA connectors that are on this particular model of DVD player. So you'll need a data connector to install in one of the SATA connections on the motherboard. So this is a front mount. So you mount it from the front of the case, and then you apply screws on both sides to hold it in place. So you move it in from the front. Again, case manual for what way to install your DVD player in the case. This is pretty generic, this one. It's just connect, and you line it up at the front. Line it up at the front so you can push it back and forth, get it just right, like the front of the panel, and then just tighten up your screw. Take the other screw, place that in, SATA cable, and it's keyed also. See it there, it looks like a shape of an L. That corresponds to the power in the DVD player. And all you do then is just plug it in to that actual spot. And and that's your power connected to it. Then take your data SATA cable and connect that to the DVD player, which is also keyed the same way, and you plug that into the data side of things. So what we're doing is we're going to connect it to one of these data connections here. They're SATA connectors. So we take the other side of that data connector and plug it into any one of them, really, it doesn't really matter. We're going to place it in the second one here. So we have to turn it. It's keyed, so it'll only go in one way. Yeah, that's your DVD player connected. Yeah, next item we'll be installing is this solid state drive. You can, if you want, go for the cheaper option, disk drive, but for reliability, the solid state drive is a better option. So that'll be this guy here. This is just one particular make. There's 4 or 5 different makes out there, but I find this one very reliable, which is the Samsung Pro 830 series. Now, €200 is what this one actually cost, but you can get 120 gig solid state drive for less than so in around $90, €80 or thereabouts. So you can get plates to install these drives, a mounting plate, so that it'll fit into the 3.5-inch part of your case. But in this particular case, I'm just going to attach it with 2 screws to the floppy area of the case. So it does the job. Again, this is all down to when you're planning your build. So all you do is you hold it in place and put a screw in it. Screws will come with the actual drive anyway. So you just put a screw in it, hold it in place, and then you can line up the front of it. And once you have it mounted, then you can see it there. You connect the SATA connector for the power. It's not very clear, but you can see that's where the hard drive is, and it's just got 2 screws in it. But as I said, you can get a mounting plate for the solid state drive and install it that way. So now we just connect in the SATA data connector. Again, you connect one side to the drive, and the other side of that data cable then goes into SATA 1 in this case. So it'll be this guy here. Again, it's keyed, so it'll only go in one way. And then just pop it in. Some of them click in, some of them you just push them in, and they stay connected. Your DVD and your solid state drive installed. Now, just a brief note on cable management and airflow through the case. So what I like to do is keep all the cables at the back of the case. So tie them up with cable ties so the air can flow through the full length of the case, so from the front of the case to the back of the case. So that's the best way to do it, is to kind of keep them to the back. Okay, normal case, so there isn't much cable management in the case itself. Like some cases come with gaps in the back plate so that you can feed the cables, the power supply, out from the back and then bring it back in towards the actual systems board. But in this case does not, it's just a normal case. Now, as far as fans go, again, some cases have fans. This one does not have a fan, and we place one there. So the types of fans, this one is one that you would connect to the power supply. So it has the connections for the power supply. And so what you do is you'd mount it whichever way you want the fan. Of course, again, it's preference. You want the back fan at the back of the case to pull air out of the fan. So you'd mount it in such a way that whichever way the fan rotates will be pulling air out. Again, you will see this instruction with the fan. It'll come with the information about the fan, what way the air flows through it when it's turned on. Now, there's another type of fan that you can get also that connects to the systems board, which was here. Now, some cases will have more than one systems fan connection. It could have 3 or 4. But again, it'll depend on what type of board you have. Your basic computer setup doesn't need a lot of air cooling, but it's a good idea to have a fan at the front pulling air in from the outside of the case, pulling it in, so basically pushing the air through over all the components, and then the back fan will pull that air out, so it's constantly being cooled with air. And that's basically the two types. So you have the one that would connect to your power supply, or the one that would connect to your systems board. And the last job that we have to do is to connect the front panel connectors. So these guys, before you do your cable management, you have to connect up these guys as well. So we'll show you how to do that now. So front panel connections. So they're the connections on the systems board, and these are the connections that this particular case. So we have speaker, power switch, reset switch, and hard drive LED. So that's an indicator light for the hard drive. So it flashes when there's activity on the hard drive. Okay, so they correspond to these guys here. So you see speaker, it is written on the board there, and that's the orange one here, and the left one there has a plus sign on it to correspond with the plus sign that's in front of speak. And the next one we'll be connecting is the power switch, which is the red guy here, has the plus sign, and it also has the wording there on the board, power switch PW, and the plus is in front of the P and the minus is after the W. And then you have the reset switch, which is below that, which is the green one here, and the plus sign is after the S, and you can see the plus sign there. It's very difficult. This is probably the most difficult part of building a PC. And the last one there then is the hard drive LED indicator light, and it's down on the motherboard as HD, and the plus sign is before the H and the minus is after the H, after the D, and it corresponds to the blue one here, this blue one here, and there's a plus sign and no sign, which is the minus. It's the 4. So we'll just connect them now. Always consult your manual. This is the easiest way to find out exactly how to connect these. Now every case is different, so you'll have different types of connections, and so we'll start there now with what this case has, and we'll start when we plug in the speaker. Now this one has the plus and the minus indicated on the connector. Basically all we do is we match up the minus, which is the first one there, and then just drop it down into it. Okay, so that's the speaker in. Then we'll take the power switch, which is the red one there. We'll just show you the connector again here. Now if we turn it around, now if you look on the back of these connectors, you will see a little arrow. You see that little guy there? That little arrow is indicating the positive side, so that's the green wire. Okay, so if we turn it around, you see it's saying power switch and it has no plus or minus. Turn it around and you'll see that little arrow. That's it there, and that's the positive side. So now we plug that in, and all of the connectors will have that little indicator on the back of it. So the power switch in this case is the red one, and we will plug our green wire into the positive side. It just drops down into it, and that's that one plugged in. And the next one then is the reset switch. The reset switch, and it goes in front of the other one, and it's turned so there's no indicator on this one. We turn it around, we'll see a little arrow. See the little arrow again? There it is, and it's the black wire in this case, and it goes into the green one there, and the positive is on the right of that little green connector. So we just drop it down on top of it, like so. That's the reset switch. And now the last one is the hard drive LED indicator light, which is this guy here, and it has the plus and the minus, and the plus is the orange one, and we see the HD indicator has the positive on the right, on the left there, in front of the H. So we drop it down like so, down into the blue one, with the positive to the left. So again, consult your manual and you'll see that see how to connect those connections. Now the next connection is the USB connector. Now it's keyed, so you can only put it in one way, so you can't really make a mistake with this one. So you'll see one of the pins is missing, and that would correspond to a missing hole in this one here. So you see there's one blank, that's it there, and that corresponds to the missing blank in the USB header. Okay, so you just drop it down like so. They're tight enough too, so just make sure that they go in the full way. And the last one is the audio. Now it's hard to show you this one because it's at the back of the case. So that's it there, and you'll see a missing pin there, and that could correspond to the missing pin in the audio connector. This guy here. Okay, you can see a missing pin there. It's the second one in from the left, and then you just drop it down like so, and then push it in, and that's how it's connected. That's the last job in this particular build. Again, if you need help with anything here that you've seen, drop us a line here. Computer Help Made Easy. So that's the build completed, and it's the same procedure whether you are building a low-end, medium range or high-end computer. It's the parts you choose that makes all the difference. And so the important area when building any type of computer is the planning of the build. Meaning, what do you want the computer for? Playing the latest games? Editing with high-end software? Perhaps you want to build a business class system, a family home entertainment system, or maybe you just need a computer for basic computing. So the idea here is to match the parts required to achieve the speed, performance and reliability that you want to get out of the build, and your budget will also have to be taken into consideration at this stage. So building a computer is not a difficult thing to do, but it helps to have someone at your side to give you the confidence and peace of mind through the process of planning and building a computer. So if you need help at any stage, I am available for free and paid sessions 7 days a week, and the details are posted on my website. So I hope you enjoyed this video on how to build a computer, and I would be delighted to help you out with your computer build. Thanks for watching.